Right now on the National Weather Desk, winter storm. More snow is falling across the Great Lakes and Northeast, including thunder snow. We have team coverage of the impacts.
People run lights without intending to just because of how slick those roads are.
It's the result of an Alberta Clipper. What exactly is an Alberta Clipper?
Well, it's essentially an area of low pressure that originates in Canada.
Bad air quality arrives in Salt Lake City thanks to the seasonal inversion.
Because the warm air is less dense, it sort of acts like the lid on a pot.
We'll check on a community recovering from deadly tornadoes spawned by Hurricane Milton.
It's a lot of trauma still.
And why your ceiling fan could help you stay warm this winter.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Another winter storm has arrived in the Great Lakes and Northeast this morning, bringing heavy snow and strong winds. Cleveland is under a lake effect snow warning through tomorrow morning, where 10 inches or more could fall, along with some 55-mile-per-hour winds. We have reporters covering the storm across the Northeast. Let's start in South Bend, Indiana.
The blanketed snow is causing very slick conditions. We've seen several cars slide. Nobody has slid off in our area so far, but we've already seen people run lights without intending to just because of how slick those roads are.
As you can see from our windshield here, there's a significant amount of packed snow on the ground, making it a little bit hard to see the lanes. Earlier today when we were on the highway, we did notice a few MDOT snowplows on our roads today, so they are certainly out and working hard to get those roads cleared.
I'm here in Richland where the snow has been coming down pretty steadily this morning. Roads are pretty slick and we're sliding a little bit on our way here, and the wind is starting to pick up, making the visibility really a struggle for drivers.
This morning, winter storm warnings once again stretch from Michigan to New England. There's even a lake effect snow warning in portions of New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and a blizzard warning in the West Virginia mountains. Many of these spots already have plenty of snow on the ground from last weekend's storm. And the storm will be accompanied by strong wind gusts. Several viewers in northern Michigan captured thunder snow last night. It's a rare weather phenomenon that typically only happens during very strong winter storms. Warm, moist air must rise rapidly, creating strong updrafts. This upward movement of air is essential for the development of both snow and lightning. For a look at how northern Michigan is getting ready for even more snow, we turn to Colin Roos.
The plows are starting up for what's expected to be a winter whiteout. Over a day-and-a-half period, heavy winds and several inches of snow are expected to pelt West Michigan. But a crew of emergency personnel, electric workers, and plow drivers are already out to protect us from the worst of it. They'll work staggered shifts starting early Thursday morning, covering over 1,300 miles in what's already proving to be an active snowstorm year.
This year, they're earlier than normal. Just 2 weeks ago, we were out doing roadside mowing.
We have a Western whiteout right here, and this is one of our snowplows that we like to use.
Independent plow drivers like Ken Flaw of KF Lawn Service are also headed out to help clear out parking lots and driveways.
It's looking like we're going to probably be plowing for the next 36 hours based on what the storm shows as of right now.
Flaw says 23 of his trucks will hit the road before the winter storm ends Friday morning. Wachowski says a new law requires all drivers to stay 200 feet behind them, and you'll likely be seeing their work stretch into the weekend.
But with lake effect, you just don't know. What you think was going to happen an hour ago totally changes.
The system bringing all the snow is known as an Alberta Clipper. Meteorologist Jennifer Collins explains what it is.
Well, it's essentially an area of low pressure that originates in Canada. It gets its name because it develops in the Alberta province of Canada. So it's a fast-moving area of low pressure that as it moves into the northern United States, it plunges cold air across this region and can bring strong winds and heavy snowfall across the Great Lakes region. Now, because of the direction of the wind, intense lake effect snowfall is expected across the eastern portion of the lakes heading into the rest of this week. Not only that, temperatures will plummet too. We're talking afternoon highs in the 20s. Factor in the wind chill value. It's going to feel like the teens through the rest of the week.
Air quality is a big problem in Salt Lake City this week, and this picture shows you why. You can see smog hovering low over the city, leaving Salt Lake with some of the worst air quality in the country. It's there because of what's known as an inversion. When warmer air rises, trapping the smog, Brian Mullehay has more.
Seeing and breathing, we're believing today.
It's just ugly.
Like I can even see it from my apartment window.
Fine pollution particles trapped in the air.
It's harder to be outside and feel good about the air quality.
For some, an unsightly and physical dimension.
Do you feel it?
I do. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to the air.
State leaders have insisted our air is getting cleaner, but Jacob Hansen, who grew up in Utah, says it doesn't seem like it.
Do you feel like it's getting better or worse?
I definitely don't think it's getting better. I haven't seen any improvement.
So what causes these inversions? Salt Lake City meteorologist Lindsay Storrs explains.
In northern Utah, we get inversions during the winter months. An inversion happens when you have a ridge of high pressure sitting overhead. A ridge of high pressure gives you sinking air, which traps the most dense air molecules or the coldest air molecules down here at the valley floor. And then you get a warm layer of air up above it. Because the warm air is less dense, it sort of acts like the lid on a pot. It keeps that cold air down here in the valleys. So anything we put out into that cold layer gets stuck. And so we tend to see that layer of haze along the valley floor, and our air quality goes downhill because of the pollutants that we put out there into the atmosphere, which can't rise like they normally can in a normal atmosphere. So this is an inverted atmosphere. When it gets warmer, the higher up you go.
In Maine, the cold temperatures and wintry precipitation is good news for local ski resorts. Meteorologist Ryan Munn looks at how they're preparing.
For the past 3 or 4 days at night, our crews have been blowing snow, a mixture of fan guns like you see in the background here, and tower guns, ground guns, really taking advantage of the temperatures that we have to make snow whenever we can.
Like the snow, the opening day is a little up in the air. It could be as soon as Sunday, with the mountain opening in stages.
We'll probably have 4 or 5 trails, a mix of beginner and intermediate, but it'll most likely be intermediate terrain only to get down to the bottom for the first couple days.
People are also excited for a brand new chairlift.
It's the first chairlift put in at Lost Valley since 1972, and will allow people to get up the mountain a little bit quicker and from a different spot. And also it's opening up some terrain that typically hasn't been able to be used without natural snow.
The 2024 hurricane season is behind us. Saturday marked its end, and it was one for the books. Meteorologist Emily Sansom takes a look back.
The 2024 Atlantic hurricane season began back on June 1st and brought 18 named storms, in which 11 were hurricanes and 5 becoming major hurricanes, or Category 3 or higher. 12 storms came after the typical peak of the hurricane season, which is early to mid-September, and 7 storms came after September 25th, which is a new record. Here are the tropical cyclone names that were used. Tony, Valerie, and William did not make the cut for this year. Heading down to the Gulf of Mexico, in the last 7 years, there were 10 major hurricanes that made landfall within those states on the coastline. Helene and Milton were added this year. Now, there were 3 storms that became record setters. Beryl was first, which was the first Category 4 storm in June, the easternmost hurricane to form in the Atlantic in June, and the earliest major hurricane to form in 58 years. The peak wind speed was 165 miles per hour as a Category 5 and made landfall as a Category 1 storm. Next is Helene, which brought catastrophic flash flooding from Florida all the way to the Carolinas. The peak wind speed was 140 miles per hour and was a Category 4 at landfall in Florida. It became the deadliest hurricane to hit the U.S. since Katrina back in 2005. Next is Milton, which is even a week or 2 later than Helene, brought rainfall and flooding up to 15 inches of rainfall and over 40 tornadoes. The peak wind speed was 180 miles per hour. It was a Category 5, but made landfall near Siesta Keys as a Category 3. It was the highest ever rapid intensification observed and increased 90 miles per hour over a 24-hour period. Now, Debbie wasn't in the top 3, but still brought flooding in high rivers to New York and Vermont. Its peak wind speed was 80 miles per hour as a Category 1. It also made landfall as a Category 1.
And frozen fog left an icy coating on trees near Reno, Nevada on Monday. The tiny supercooled liquid water droplets in fog don't freeze unless they come in contact with a surface. So when they touch something like a tree branch, they instantly freeze. It can be pretty, but dangerous too, because it can lead to black ice. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, it's been over 2 months since Hurricane Milton battered Florida. We'll look at how one town is recovering, and we'll find out how clouds can impact temperature.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Nearly 2 months after deadly tornadoes shredded a Florida community ahead of Hurricane Milton, residents are working to clean things up and get back to normal. Dylan Huberman has a look at the recovery progress in the Spanish Lakes community.
On October 9th, tornadoes shredded parts of the Spanish Lakes Country Club community near Fort Pierce. Houses torn apart and cars thrown around like toys. Drone 12 captured this footage of the severe damage just days after the storm. Now, nearly 2 months later, Drone 12 flew over the community again, and you can see a lot of debris has been removed, but there's still work to be done.
It's a lot of trauma still. There's still a lot of people that just aren't either able to pick up the pieces or are trying to pick up the pieces. And as you look around the community and see the houses that are barely standing or an empty lot where there was a house and one of your neighbors lived, it's still scary.
Spanish Lakes resident Michelle Westfield says there's been a lot of change lately.
So many houses for sale, houses just completely gone, neighbors we haven't seen that just had to leave because their homes are unlivable.
But she says the community has gotten closer since the storm, trying to rebuild what was lost together.
When it comes to weather, what are called teleconnections play a major role. Teleconnections refers to the relationships between weather patterns in different regions. Let's turn to meteorologist Brandon Stover to get a better understanding of how they work and how they influence weather in different parts of the country.
These are essentially just indices that tell you general temperature and pressure patterns across a broad area. So kind of climate signals, if you will, and the models give us a good idea of these teleconnections. They can go out 3-4 weeks, giving us an understanding of what's coming down the pike. So this is how this works. There are a few teleconnection examples. There's several to go over, but the ones that impact the United States the most is the North American Oscillation. The acronym for that is NAO. The AO, the Arctic Oscillation, both of those are very similar essentially. And the PNA, that's the Pacific North American Oscillation. In a negative NAO, you've got a high pressure up near Greenland. You've got unseasonably warm temperatures there, and there are upstream and downstream impacts as a result of that blocking high. So it's essentially a log jam in the jet stream, allowing the jet stream to build north just east of the eastern United States. So upstream, that pushes the jet stream south across the east. So in a negative NAO, you're going to get colder than average temperatures across much of the east and potentially unsettled. That jet stream's rather energized, so that can create some cold, snowy conditions. Conversely, a positive NAO, you're going to get the opposite. You're going to get a low pressure up near Greenland, colder than average temperatures there. Upstream, the jet stream builds north, so you're going to see warmer than average temperatures across the east. Now in the PNA pattern, it's kind of reversed. A negative PNA, you're going to get more of a dip or a low pressure out west. That induces the jet stream to build north out east, so you're going to get warmer than average temperatures. And likewise, in a positive PNA, you're going to get warmer than average temperatures out west with the jet stream building north. And conversely, out east, you're going to get the jet stream diving south, and that will lead to colder than average temperatures, potentially unsettled too.
When winter weather arrives, it might take a little time to get used to driving in those conditions. Kaylee Whitlatch takes a look at what drivers should think about before winter prepares to settle in.
People try to drive normal. This is just not the normal situation.
Iowa State Patrol had a busy Monday morning, responding to nearly 90 crashes statewide and answering more than 50 drivers' calls for help. Now, when it comes to driving in fresh snowfall, Trooper Bob Conrad says creating a bigger gap between your car and the person in front of you can ensure you both make it to where you're going safely.
Always err on the side of caution. If it looks slick, slow down, prepare, both hands on the steering wheel.
The Iowa DOT says its snowplows may be moving slower than the flow of traffic, so it's good to give them plenty of space too, as crews work to make the roads safer.
Be very careful when you're deciding to pass a snowplow, and if you're on a 2-lane road, it's probably best to not pass the snowplow at all. But if you have an opportunity to safely pass, we want you to make sure you give the plow plenty of space, both in front and behind and beside.
Officials also urge you to clear all the snow off your vehicle so it doesn't impede your view or blow onto someone else's car. Trooper Conrad says to slow your speed in slippery and slushy conditions, especially in case there's black ice, and you'll need to be more aware of the drivers around you.
Really watch the bridges, the overpasses we're at, but also watch any places where people are merging. We also see a lot of people where they merge, people overreact and they start sliding out of control. But we haven't seen anything yet. Unfortunately, this is Iowa. We know it's going to get worse.
It's not just your car that needs some slight adjustment during the winter months. You might think the best thing to do with your ceiling fan in the winter is to turn it off, but that's not the case. Meteorologist Sharon Ray explains.
And in the summertime, we do have it set to a counterclockwise flow, and that causes the air to be pushed down to the surface, which is nice because we feel that cool breeze and it gives us kind of a wind chill effect. So yeah, this is good for the summer, but we don't want that cool breeze coming down from that fan in the winter. There should be a switch on your ceiling fan, and if you switch that to the opposite direction, that'll cause it to go clockwise, and that's what we want now for these colder months. A clockwise flow will take that air and lift it rather than push it down. What is that going to do? Well, as you know, heat rises, and that rising heat ends up with a pretty nice layer in closer to the ceiling. So when you put it in the clockwise position, that forces the air up and brings it back down the walls and farther down into that cooler air and mixes the air and makes it feel more comfortable. And some experts say that this can save 15% on your energy bill, depending on, of course, other things. But yeah, you can save some money doing this as well, because it's mixing that warm air with the cooler air and giving you a little more warmth at the surface. Put it on a low setting in the winter, though, very low setting. Make it just barely turn.
When it comes to temperature, there are a number of things that play a role. One that may surprise you is cloud cover. Meteorologist Evan Chikvara explained how clouds can impact cold in a recent Instagram post. Take a look.
Okay, so here's a teachable moment, just things that can change in the forecast. So I'd forecast 22 to about 28 this morning. We're more so 28 to about 32, a bit warmer. One of the reasons, see back behind me? Clouds. The same way you put a sheet on to keep your body heated and stay warm while you're inside or pull on a blanket is the same thing, clouds to the Earth's surface. When clouds are around overnight, it doesn't let our temperature fall. Clouds act as a barrier. That daytime heating from the previous day, it doesn't escape into the atmosphere. We trap that heat in. We had clouds overnight, so we're seeing about an 8-degree temperature shift from where we thought would happen. Don't get me wrong, it's still cold, but we got a wind chill factor as well. So know that as you head out the door.
For more content like this, be sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on all your favorite platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. Time now for a short break, but first we take in views of Boston, Massachusetts from above.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And a reminder about our podcast, Off the Radar. This week's episode is all about atmospheric rivers. Here's a sneak peek.
It's a weather term gaining momentum in recent years.
The latest atmospheric river will continue to batter California today. Another powerful atmospheric river is bearing down on California.
They can transform landscapes, overwhelm infrastructure, and reshape our understanding of extreme weather.
A lot of rain coming from this latest atmospheric river is one of the reasons it's been so wet this year.
Today we're going off the radar and into the sky to uncover the history and mystery of atmospheric rivers. I'll be talking to Dr. Marty Ralph, the man that put this weather phenomenon on the map.
But it wasn't until 2003 that I noticed the AR paper that the light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what we're studying.
We'll hear about the scale he created to rank them.
In the face of an absence of something, we've invented something that's shown value.
And why further research to understand ARs is so important.
And you can find Off the Radar anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Thursday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.